In Ottawa's corridors, a sense of urgency and quiet determination fills the air. A profound shift is underway, one that is reshaping the very core of Canada's foreign policy approach. Canada's response to the U.S. military intervention in Venezuela is not loud, but it is historic, marking a turning point in the nation's diplomatic posture. Prime Minister Trudeau's government has signaled, through coordinated actions and carefully chosen words, that it views President Trump's unilateral move as a grave violation of international norms and a direct challenge to the principles Canada holds dear. This is Canada's strongest rebuke of American foreign policy in decades, a rare and deliberate stand against its closest ally. The reaction is more than a policy disagreement. It's a defense of Canada's identity, its values, and its unwavering commitment to a rules-based international order that has long defined its place in the world. For years, Canada relied on multilateralism and respect for sovereignty. Now, those principles are under threat, and the country finds itself at a crossroads, forced to reconsider its role on the global stage. The American action is seen as a dangerous embrace of power politics, discarding the post-war framework that kept the continent secure and stable for generations. Across Canada's political spectrum, there is rare unity. This is a matter of national interest, not partisanship. Leaders from all sides recognize the stakes and the need for a united front. Security experts warn that normalizing unilateral intervention by a superpower sets a perilous precedent for all nations, including Canada, and could erode the very foundations of international cooperation. Ottawa's message is clear: Canada will not stand by as foundational principles are dismantled, nor will it allow silence to be mistaken for consent. This is not anti-Americanism, but a defense of a system where rules, not might, govern nations, and where even the most powerful are held accountable. Canada is drawing a line, preparing for a future where its closest relationship is also its most complex challenge, and where it must balance partnership with principle. The quiet rebuke from the North is a sober acknowledgement that the world has changed, and so must Canada. In this new era, the nation's voice may be calm, but its resolve is unmistakable. Ottawa's alarm is rooted in the Trump administration's doctrine, one that prioritizes unilateral power over sovereignty. Canadian officials see the Venezuela intervention as the culmination of a worldview that treats alliances as transactional and international law as optional. The language from Washington, restoring order in America's hemisphere, echoes the outdated Monroe Doctrine, signaling a return to great power politics. For Canada, a middle power reliant on a stable system, this shift is deeply unsettling. The assumption that the U.S. would never use its power against allies is no longer guaranteed. The Trump doctrine views allies as dependents or competitors, not partners. This forces Canada to rethink its defense and foreign policy from the ground up. The era of relying on a predictable American partner is over. Canadian officials are now planning for contingencies once thought unthinkable. The crisis in Venezuela is a warning for Canada. If the U.S. can justify intervention in one hemisphere, what stops it from applying the same logic elsewhere? The Venezuela action chips away at the mutual respect that has long defined the Canada-U.S. border. Ottawa is now forced to consider scenarios where American interests could override Canadian sovereignty, especially in the Arctic. The precedent of unilateralism threatens every treaty and agreement between the two countries. For Canada, defending sovereignty is no longer abstract. It's a daily imperative. The invasion of Venezuela shattered the belief that U.S. institutions would restrain aggressive impulses. Ottawa now treats American rhetoric as a direct statement of intent, not just political theater. Canada's defense and intelligence agencies are reassessing contingency plans, especially for the Arctic and maritime approaches. The focus is on ensuring Canada can monitor and enforce its laws independently. Intelligence agencies are now analyzing U.S. politics as a potential source of strategic surprise. The comfortable assumption of a permanent alliance is gone. Canada must be ready to assert its interests, even when they conflict with its most powerful ally. This is not hostility, but prudent adaptation to a new reality. Canada's response is a coordinated strategy across diplomacy, defense, and economics. Diplomatically, Canada is building coalitions with like-minded middle powers, strengthening ties with the EU, Commonwealth, and Asian democracies. Militarily, Canada is investing in surveillance, coastal defense, and joint exercises with NATO and other allies, demonstrating its resolve to defend its territory. Economically, Canada is accelerating trade diversification, reducing dependence on the U.S. market through agreements like CPTPP and CETA. These moves are not about confrontation, but about resilience and autonomy. Ottawa knows that neither protest nor provocation alone will suffice. By weaving together these initiatives, Canada is building a more robust, independent position. The message: Canada is a sovereign nation, ready to defend its place in a rules-based world. Canada's response is defined by its measured, deliberate tone, reflecting a tradition of thoughtful diplomacy in the face of international tension. Trudeau's government avoids inflammatory rhetoric, opting instead for firm, principled disagreement grounded in international law and respect for global norms. This calm approach is strategic. Escalation would only play into the hands of the Trump administration, potentially worsening the situation and undermining Canada's interests. Canada's quiet diplomacy aims to build a broad international consensus against unilateralism, seeking allies and support from like-minded nations. The government's strategy, strengthening alliances, reinforcing sovereignty, and diversifying economic ties, has broad public support, uniting Canadians across political lines. Canadians recognize the power imbalance and favor pragmatic, long-term solutions that protect national interests while maintaining global partnerships. This approach draws on historical precedent. Canada has navigated U.S. disagreements before by maintaining independence without rupturing the relationship, learning from past challenges. The current challenge is more acute, but the lesson remains. Calm, principled action is most effective, especially when the stakes are high. Canada's stance is not weakness, but confidence in its principles and a belief in the value of steady leadership. The goal is to isolate the act, not the actor, leaving room for future de-escalation and the possibility of renewed cooperation. The national mood is one of sober concern, not panic, as Canadians look to their leaders for reassurance and clarity. Canada is responding as a mature nation, realistic about the challenges ahead, yet determined to uphold its values and navigate the crisis with integrity. At the heart of Canada's response is a vigorous diplomatic campaign to reinforce and revitalize its global alliances, ensuring that its voice is heard on the world stage. Ottawa is focusing on collective action, working tirelessly to strengthen ties within NATO, the G7, and the Commonwealth, while also reaching out to new partners. Canada is rallying nations to reaffirm the principles of sovereignty and international law, framing the Venezuela intervention as not just a regional crisis, but a global issue that demands a united response. This is a direct counter to the America First doctrine. Canada is doubling down on multilateralism, emphasizing cooperation over isolation. Proposing a special UN session, Canada is using sidelined institutions as platforms for resistance, breathing new life into international forums that have been overlooked. Middle powers like Germany, Japan, and Australia are increasingly receptive to Canada's message of collective resilience, seeing it as a way to amplify their own influence. Discussions now include coordinated statements, intelligence sharing, and joint initiatives to uphold international norms, with a focus on transparency and trust. This is not an anti-US bloc, but rather a network dedicated to global stability, seeking to complement American efforts where possible and provide balance where needed. Multilateralism is now a core security strategy for Canada, not just a diplomatic preference, as the world faces increasingly complex threats. Canada's coalition building is a principled stand against the erosion of international law, aiming to preserve a rules-based order for future generations. Recent events have forced Canada to overhaul its security outlook. The era of relying on the US as a guarantor of security is over. Canada must now invest in defending its own territory, especially the Arctic, maritime, and cyber domains. Sovereignty is a physical reality, not just a legal concept. National security now means societal resilience, countering foreign interference, protecting infrastructure, and preparing for hybrid threats. Canada must chart a more independent course, cultivating a wider network of partners. The US alliance remains important, but the relationship must be rebalanced. The Venezuela crisis is a wake-up call. Canada must embrace a new era of preparedness. Canada's response to the US action in Venezuela is more than a policy dispute, it's a declaration of principle. The Trudeau government's strategy, diplomatic coalition building, military reassessment, and economic diversification signals a turning point. Canada will not endorse a doctrine that replaces law with power. The era of taking American predictability for granted is over. Canada must be more self-reliant and vigilant. The message to the U.S. is one of principle, not enmity. True strength lies in upholding the system that enables freedom for all. Canada's actions defend the post-war order both nations built. By standing firm, Canada asserts its sovereignty and its role as a principled partner. The quiet rebuke from the North is a profound statement of national identity and purpose.